to the throw, fire, and down! Incomplete down at the goal line by San Diego! Tomlinson, off the left side, Tomlinson sidestep. Hello, history books. I think they have to now. Here's Sproles. Sproles inside the 10, inside the 5, and the Chargers win the game.
What's up, good people? Welcome. It's draft season. Tomorrow, Thursday. Sorry, 2 days.
Off the brakes.
The draft is upon us, though. So we're here to do our mock draft. Craig and I have not spoke about how we're feeling about the draft, and I think we'll do that before we get going with this mock. But we are here. We will go live during the draft. We will see who will join us. We don't have our lineup quite yet, but make sure you tune in on Thursday, and then we'll let you know about Friday and or Saturday. So thanks, everybody, for joining us. Now, Craig, it's been a while. Talk to me about first thoughts. Let's just jump right into it. Chargers have the 22nd pick. It's only 5 total picks. There's a lot of needs. How are you feeling? What's your kind of angle here before we get the draft started?
If ever there was a year to trade back, and I feel like we ask for this every single year, it doesn't quite work out, but
yeah,
this kind of feels like the year to get it done. I mean, you mentioned it. There's only 5 draft picks so far, and it feels like kind of the value in the draft, the positions of need fall in between like the 2nd and 3rd rounds. So if I were the Chargers, would be looking to get at least 4 top 100 picks. So we can talk about, and I'm sure we will when we go through this list, like the areas of need, which ones are the most pressing, and where they should attack first. But as far as the overall draft itself, I'm not going to say it's like mid, but it's a little top heavy at like the really, really, really good players in positions. And then there's kind of a drop off, and there's not much of a difference between, say, guys that are towards the back end of the 1st round and players well into like the end of the 2nd. When I did a few of these grades, a lot of them graded out pretty evenly. So, I mean, that's the good news. There are really good players that you can get again into like the 2nd, 3rd round, maybe even the 4th, depending on what positions you're looking at. So there's some work to be done, and Joe Ortiz is probably going to have to put on a masterclass, because there's a lot of people were upset about they weren't doing a lot of spending in free agency. He also told you this week that he's probably never going to do that. But with that in mind, they can absolutely continue to build a contender through this class. So a lot to look forward to, in my opinion.
Yeah, I am 100% on team trade down. You might not say this draft is mid, but I mean, I was searching for 1st round grades when watching these players. There's just not a lot, and it's not like hyperbole. It just doesn't feel like there's like the elite talents. Like there's some good up top, but there isn't like, franchise changing type players in this draft. Even the best quarterback feels like he's like a B tier quarterback, which, it happens every year when they push quarterbacks up the draft board, and I get all that. But it really feels like where the Chargers are picking, if you're not picking in the top 10, maybe 10 to 12, it feels like you should be trading back, because all the other talent from there on out, depending on need, there's a lot of different variables, of course. But if you're looking for something like the Chargers are, which is multiple players to fill a bunch of different positional holes that they just did not do in free agency, Ortiz and Harbaugh have got to be thinking about trading back. They're just at 22. There is not going to be in my mind, unless there's a Rashawn Slater type slide or Derwin James type slide, but even that was in the teens. By 22, I don't see any real best case scenarios happening for the Chargers. And the difference between the player at 22 to the player at, say, 27 or 26, I'm just throwing numbers out there. I'm not looking at teams. If you're dropping 5 to 7 spots back, the fall off is minimal at best. It feels like there's a lot of high end second round players in my grades. So it feels like you'll be able to get one of those guys late, and then if you could pick up an early second or mid second, then you can start adding some players, which you feel like could maybe be, guys that can contribute later on. I don't know that you have, again, somebody who's going to overhaul your offense or defense, but there are key pieces that can help your offense or defense. So with that said, it feels like trading down and adding those pieces rather than buying all in to get that one or two players that you think could really help your team. I think the Chargers and Ortiz, had talked about, hinting at wanting more than 5 picks. And a guy who loves picks and building through the draft, this is the year to do it. And we say it every year, but it just feels like with this particular draft class, which is a few good players at the top and then some pretty good players after that, it's got to be taking all calls and even working the phones and trying to get something to move down for, maybe somebody who's looking, if one of those safeties fall, because it sounds like one of those top 2, not including Caleb, but outside of Downs. After that, feels like one of those safeties might fall. There might be a wide receiver that falls that somebody's looking for. I'm looking for any chance I can to move down, because I just don't. Whatever is available at 22 on the board, there's probably 2 or 3 players I'd probably take at that position and be okay with it. And knowing that I could get it 5 picks later, I'm okay with that.
The Chargers probably have to feel like they're in a little bit of a no man's land this year because of the overall class and how the drop off from the top players to the next tier ended up this season. Because if there are going to be as many trade backs as what's being proposed or talked about, then when you get towards the back end of the first round, the question there lies is, like we mentioned it, what's the difference between a player at 22 and say 29, 30, or early first round? You might be willing just to wait to see what falls to you. So what the Chargers have to hope is that there is someone that's not supposed to be on the board or wasn't anticipated to be on the board, and some team feels rushed, like they need to move up to make that happen and maybe get a little bit desperate, and the Chargers can fleece them for some picks. Because at this point, I know that ideally most people want to do the trade back, but you got to have somebody that dance with you. And if there's going to be a bunch of action in the top half of the first, then you're just going to be crossing your fingers, hoping that somebody falls that isn't supposed to be there. And either you'll get to take advantage of that by making the selection, or you can, again, fleece a team for some additional picks. So I'm just trying to temper myself in preparation for this, because we keep talking about trading back, and I know it sounds great, and I know it's what the majority of us want, but there has to be someone to do it with. And again, just based on all the noise that's going on, we know how all this pre-draft stuff works. It could just be nothing. But you got multiple teams with more than one first-round pick already. And so you're going to have to contend with that. And a lot of these top flight, no pun intended, upper echelon players could go way earlier. And then you're just looking at a bunch of guys that are all around the same tier. And teams will just be willing to take whatever falls into their lap.
So this, and I will say up front, full disclosure, I over the last 2.5, 3 weeks have crammed like crazy trying to get all these players that I could prep for this draft. I did it while listening to music. I did not do any research on players' names, so I will be mispronouncing almost every player unless it's John Smith or Ted Carr. I can do easy names, but when we start to get to these names, especially like this guard that we're hoping from Vega, when you're trying to, when you're trying to get those names down without any preparation beforehand, it's going to get mangled. So, what is the scenario for you? I mean, it feels like Vega's the obvious answer, but at 22, is there guys that if they're there, and let's be realistic, we know who's probably going to go in the top 15-ish. Are there any guys that you are sitting pat at 22 if X is on the board? Vega being one? Yes? No?
Yeah, Vega's. It's interesting. I've gone back and forth about this because I know that everybody's like, if Vega's there, you run the card up. Yes, I'm going to stick with saying if Vega's there that you take him.
Mhm.
I could understand potentially still trading out of that and back if someone gets desperate and wants him and is willing to give up a haul, because keep in mind, this team doesn't necessarily, well, this iteration of it doesn't necessarily value guard play to the extent that we all feel like they ought to. That being said, if guards aren't as pivotal a part of the offensive line, then what if you're okay with getting the second tier guard or one of the second tier guards who may not be everything that Vega would be, as a player moving forward? He might have the higher ceiling, but maybe one like, for instance, we haven't talked about him yet, like a guy like Basantis, who's still going to be there. I mean, this is just me looking at them as players and what I watched. Some guys I'm not as impressed with as I think the consensus is. I think Basantis is a good player, but I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if he fell towards the back end of all the way towards the end of the first round, maybe into the early second. That's just me. Even Emmanuel Pregnon, that's another guy that's been getting some first round hype. If he ended up falling into the second, I wouldn't be surprised either. It's not that they're bad players. It's just that you have to take this class at kind of sort of face value. Well, really deeper than that. When you watch the physical play on the field, you see that they're not to the top tier of players at their positions that you've seen in years past, but it's just kind of what the draft is giving you this year. So the level of overall play is good for this class, but it's kind of like being the smartest kid in the dumbest class. So yeah, you might find yourself in a position where you don't necessarily have to take that number one player like Vega overall, and you can still get someone who can contribute in the offense that doesn't necessarily value guard play to that extent. But being long-winded here, if Vega's there, I'm perfectly fine with them doing it. I'm not going to give any pushback on it. Other than that, the wide receiver position keeps messing with me, because not just because I'm a former wide receiver, it's the fact that they were after a wide receiver in free agency, and I just can't let that go. And they weren't after just any wide receiver. They were looking for a true vertical X wide receiver. So with that being said, there aren't a whole lot of those early on. Like there's a guy like Denzel Boston, who's like an end of the first round, maybe into early second round type guy, but I'm a really big fan of Boston's game.
Okay.
If they did that in the first round, I'm not going to be jumping on top of the table about it, but I wouldn't mind. I could understand it, especially depending on what falls to them. But if they go Vega, that's like option one that they do that I'm okay with. Other than that, I would prefer them absolutely trade back. But if there's a wide receiver that falls to them that kind of fits the bill for what they want, I could see them going that route too. It's just a really weird year because they have so many different needs. And there's so many of the top players at the positions of needs that can go before their picks, where literally they can get to the 22nd pick and it's one of those situations where none of the guys are on the board that you would really, really want. And you're just begging someone to come up and trade with you. And then they just have to take like BPA, which in another better draft class, I'd be fine with. This one, not so much.
So if you're sitting at 22, I am not trading down if Vega's on the board. I just feel like he's one of the best, if not the best, offensive linemen in this class. I am staying pat if Spencer Fano is available. And then also Francis Mainoa. If any of those three are still available, which have all been mocked to the Chargers at some point, if any of those three, and I know two of them were tackles, I feel like they can really be really good kicked inside a guard. Any of those three players, I would stay pat. Outside of that, I'm trading down.
Yeah. Francis Mainoa, me being a Miami Hurricanes fan, I'm telling you, if Mainoa falls past like pick 15, I'd be completely shocked. But he's another one of those guys that's going to be a right tackle. I have this whole thing about guys that start at one position and play that the majority of the time in college, kicking into other positions. I don't love that at the next level. You have to be a different level athlete and performer in order to pull that off without any hitch. So I would rather not have to take a guy and then move him into another position that he's never played. Mainoa's like been a right tackle. If he were to be drafted by the Chargers, essentially, like I think they would be moving him over to left guard because there's a certain guy who's number 69 by the name of Cole Strange who decided that. That seems like he's going to be the starting right guard at this point. So you'd be taking Maui Noa and moving him over not only to the opposite side of the line, but to a position that he's never actually played. So yeah, I'm with you, man. If Vega's there, I'm fine with taking him. I'm not going to give any pushback there. Other than that, the next option ideally would be to trade back.
All right. So do you want to enter the draft? You want to start now and then have a discussion about it?
Yeah, we can talk about what happens and see what kind of maneuvering there. Well, not maneuvering, but as far as picks, who we feel comfortable with. Or what do you want to do?
Well, I'm just thinking like let's enter and let's just figure it out. We'll go from there. Because I'm thinking like what Jordan Tyson's available. So this would be the perfect scenario to trade down. There's gonna be a team that's gonna fall in love with Jordan Tyson and want to come up and get him.
Yeah.
But normally the scenario is Keldrick Falk, who apparently went to the Steelers. So they did make a trade, I'm sure, for
with the Chargers.
With the Chargers. So normally, to me, in my mind, I have two guys that I feel like have been coming up in all the mock drafts that I'm comfortable taking here.
Mm-hmm.
One went at 21, and it's Kedrick Falk. If he was available, I would strongly consider him at edge. He feels like the best player available at that spot. The other guy that I'm higher on, I think, than most is Caden Proctor. I really feel like with his weight down and kicking him inside, the ceiling for a guy like Caden Proctor is high enough that you'd be very comfortable putting him at left guard right away and being kind of a inside man for a long time. I am not considering any of these DBs. I know Blake Miller's been mocked to the Chargers at times. I'm not a fan of having him there. And I just don't think there's a defensive tackle worth taking there. The other name here is TJ Parker that I think we need to consider.
All right, so you're gonna get some pushback. You're gonna get some pushback from me early on this one.
On Proctor?
Both Falk and Proctor. So Falk is a guy that
if you give me this Latham Beckham thing that Hannah did.
Oh no, I'm not doing that. I can do you one better or one worse.
You better not
before we get there.
Parker.
I am. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of Bama offensive tackles that don't work out at tackle and kicking the guard. I'm not trying to do that again. I'm just not. I mean, again, I just told you I feel a really weird way about taking guys, specifically Alabama offensive linemen, that play tackle and then kicking the guard. I like what Proctor could potentially be, but again, you have to keep in mind what they're looking for in this offensive scheme. Proctor's not like, I mean, the dude I think he caught like a screen pass and scored a touchdown on it or something last year. Like, cool. He moves really well for someone his size. Will that translate at the next level? Potentially, if he loses the weight. Yeah, it could. But then we're talking about projections. My thing is like, I'm tired of projects. I want somebody that will go in that's played the position that you can pretty much count on from day one to be someone who won't be an initial liability. I'm not saying that a rookie's automatically going to step in day one, fresh out of the wrapper and be perfect. I think that they'll have their their bumps and bruises that they have to endure. But I would rather not have to move a guy in order to do that at a position where we have to have at least one solid option. Cole Strange, I don't know what's going to happen over there. I know it hasn't been good. That being said, I don't want to take someone else who's going to have to work their way into it as the season goes along. I'm not willing to do that to Herbert. I don't want anyone to slow down an offense that they're going to be getting in the groove of in year one anyway. The Falk situation, I ended up liking Falk a little bit more than what I did when I started, but I'm still kind of middle of the road with him because the question for me is if you're going to get an edge rusher and you're going to incorporate him into this 3-man rotation, it needs to be somebody that offers you something the other two don't. That's what you had with Odafe Owe. He had length, explosion, and athleticism. Falk is a very good athlete for his size, but he's not necessarily all that explosive off of the line of scrimmage. The dude is like 280 pounds. He can slim down. That's cool. He can play a little 5-tech for you if you want. I think he can reduce down even more on the interior. If you want to get kind of some NASCAR stuff going on, you want to kick him with an inside, but he's still at this point a power rusher. I feel like if you're going to go edge, then you need to get someone who can contribute in a facet that you don't have someone currently on the roster right now, which is why, and I don't love it because of the length issue, but you've got like a more explosive option in guys like what's my boy from like Cassius Howell. He's someone that makes a little bit more sense to me because of the explosiveness, and he's more of a natural pass rusher. So you've already got Thule and you got Mack, who are power rushers. You have to have the element of twitchiness, and that's what Howell gives you. Again, I don't love it, but I understand that to me that pick makes more sense because I think that he can give you something as a designated pass rusher now. Where if you're talking about Falk, he kind of gives you more of the same of what you already have. And we saw what that looked like when they didn't have the explosive edge rusher before they got Owe. They had issues getting to the quarterback. So that's my rationale behind not loving the Falk pick, because it feels like you're taking a guy that you're trying to develop to be better. And yes, that might help you maybe be your Khalil Mack replacement going into next year. But if you're looking to compete this year, who's going to be that edge rusher that gives you that explosiveness? Unless you do something else like in post-draft, maybe somebody gets cut from another team, before training camp, and you can pick up a vet that way and you can incorporate them into the system. I mean, whatever. But yeah, those two names I don't love, especially not the Proctor one. Like, you could talk me into Falk. I could be okay with it, maybe, but the Proctor thing, I'm scarred, man. DJ Fluker ruined it for me.
But this is the same conversation I was having with Charger fans about Tyler Booker, and everybody was overlooking him because he played left tackle. He was from Bama. He was big. He was DJ Fluker 2.0, and then he went and played guard for the Cowboys and was pretty good last year. So like it just feels like I understand that there's some trauma there from DJ Fluker, and we all lived it, and I don't love it, and it gives me pause too. But I'm not going to hold that against him because not everybody's DJ Fluker. Not every Alabama tackle moving to guards can be DJ Fluker. And I have my questions on Howell. It feels like as an older rookie to get his first starting snaps last season for the first time, it just feels like he hasn't been consistent enough to even be a first-round player. It feels like really rich to me to go here. I don't know. I think okay, so who, if you had to pick here, and also I think with Keldrick, I think the argument with Owe was Khalil Mack was injured for a lot of the year, so they needed to get an extra pass rusher because they had nothing after Thule. And I mean literally nothing. It feels like getting another power rusher. It just feels like a natural fit to me when you can learn behind a guy like Khalil Mack. But I understand that you're not with it. And then also I understand that there's some tape of Proctor you might like, not like. I understand that, but I really do feel like those foot issues, especially on an island that he had trouble with, would be cleaned up a lot. At least on the inside.
Proctor also feels to me like he would make more sense if this was still a Greg Roman offense. He feels like that would absolutely be the pick if we were still doing that. But I mean, I understand where you're going, and it could just be, like you said, me being scarred, but I ain't willing to take that risk. And even when we're talking how, like, I'm still thinking about styles. If you didn't go how, I'd even be fine with the guy like, it wasn't TJ Parker still available?
Yeah, he's there.
Parker's kind of like your happy medium. So if you don't want just kind of like the pure edge rusher, Parker is still someone that, I mean, I had him ranked higher than Howell. But I would say that if it's the choice between those two, and I mean, we'll make our pick, I would actually say maybe lean closer. If we're talking, again, a middle ground, TJ Parker would probably be the direction I would go because he gives you some of both. And I don't know what was going on with Clemson last year. They had all of these like tremendous 4- and 5-star players that did absolutely nothing last year, all at the same time. I don't know if they were cursed or what, like between Parker and like Peter Woods, just not playing up the expectation, but I would take my chances on a guy like Parker, who we've seen produce at a high level coming off of a bad year with a team that seems to be able to revive guys coming off of bad years. So we can throw Parker in the mix there as well. It would be somebody I would consider.
So I would consider TJ Parker over Howell. I've got Parker ranked higher. I know PFF does not, but that's where I would go if we were going to edge. Now, if we were having a conversation like, hey, edge feels like there could be a pretty big drop off, especially if you're not trading down. By the time the Chargers come back around to pick at 55, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of guys left. So I could see why you would lean towards going TJ Parker. So I could make that argument. I could get on board with that. If I were making this pick, if I were GM, I would take Proctor. I understand that you're not on board, and this has got to be a group decision here. So I could be talked into TJ Parker, knowing that there are some guards that probably will be available, but not so much edge in my mind.
Yeah, when you're using that logic, looking at not just need, but strength of class, things definitely fall off. When we're talking edge. Now, there's some pretty good names in the second round, but then the question becomes, will they be available when, the Chargers get around to the 55th pick? And that's a game I'm not willing to play. So if you can get your edge 3 now, I would recommend doing it. Whereas guard, I think you can probably get a solid option all the way into the 3rd round, unless some crazy run happens on guards early second, which I don't suspect, but, weirder things have happened.
So it feels like after Malachi Lawrence, there's a pretty big drop off. So right now the rankings are Howell, TJ Parker, Zion Young, R. Mason Thomas, Gabe Jacas.
It's Akis, the J silent.
Akis, and then Malachi Lawrence. And then after that, it feels like there's a pretty big drop off. And then at guard, it feels like it goes pretty strong for a while. I don't feel like any of these names are worth drafting now, but there's Pregnon, there's Basantis, Rutledge, Connor Liu, Hecht, Farmer, Slaughter. There's some names in there ish that I think would be worth taking in the second round. Question is from Casey, why not take EMW?
Okay, McNeil Warren.
Yeah.
I've seen this a bunch, right? And I understand the logic here also. This is one of the top safeties. I mean, right now he's a top 3 safety, depending on where you look. Some people have him rated like at least, some people go between 2nd and 3rd rated safety on the board, right? So I understand why this is a true free safety, super rangy, got the length, the ability to find the ball and be a disruptor, in the middle of the field. Again, get the sideline to sideline. I don't think safety is as big. This is kind of one of those BPA situations. Like, you could do it, but do you really need a safety right now? Like, I keep seeing people say things about the safety position, but you did re-sign Tony Jefferson. I get that he's older, but he can still play. There was no fall off in his game last year, and I don't think there's enough snaps to go around for the amount of safeties that they currently have. Derwin's going to play his nickel role. Completely understand that. You got RJ Mickens that I feel like people completely forget about. I just don't think at that point in time that you would want to take a true free safety when you have these options. And there's also options for if you wanted just a true free safety into like the 3rd or 4th round with a guy like Bud Clark from TCU, who I really, really like. If you want somebody who just plays the ball really well in the air and can range from sideline to sideline and isn't afraid to come up and stick their nose in the run game and get dirty too. So that's just not where I would go personally. It would almost be like, yes, you're making a strength stronger, but is that the best use of your resources when you only have 5 picks?
Yeah, that feels like a need that you're going to have to address probably day 3, early day 2 in the 3rd round at best, in my mind. Papa Starch asked if Gerard McCoy went. He did. He went to the Cowboys at 12. I want to say.
Okay, so
Yep.
that's interesting because there are all these trade names that keep popping up here. If the Cowboys did do that, then that would maybe implicate that they're looking to get rid of a certain player that they just franchise tagged potentially. And that might be of interest to the Chargers also when you consider that they were still looking at getting a true XY receiver. So these are all very interesting conversations to have, even when we made the joke about the Steelers. And there's news that they are looking to get off of one of their younger edge rushers, specifically Alex Highsmith. These are all things to keep an eye on as we go into Thursday. But yeah, from the safety role, like you mentioned before, we probably just need to push that out. I don't think it's a good use of resources right now, and just other more pressing options.
Yep. Yeah. Remy 502 is asking about Peter Woods. Would you consider Peter Woods here?
Is he still on the board?
He is, yes.
I like Peter Woods. I really do.
I'm with you.
I could be talked into Woods only because he does have like that twitchiness as an interior disruptor, and that's still something that they're lacking. You put Woods next to Tart, I think you have a quality day one interior defensive line that can really do some damage. And again, I feel like it doesn't get enough credit, but as an interior disruptor or interior defensive lineman, if you can be a disruptor from that position, there's no other position on the field that can affect the game as much as that one position as far as like affecting the offense, because you can literally blow up any type of play, runs, passes, whatever. You can speed up any and everything. Peter Woods has that type of ability. There were some inconsistencies on tape, but again, I feel like from a development standpoint, I trust this coaching staff to be able to get the best and most consistent play out of guys like this. So if you told me we picked Peter Woods, I'd be cool with that also. Again, interior play, especially when you can affect the play almost instantly, like get instant wins, it makes everyone else's life that much easier. Corners don't have to cover as long. You don't necessarily have to worry about the edge rush getting there. You can funnel guys out of the pocket into the edge rush. It just does so many different things. So if you can score a high level interior rusher, then I think you go for it. So as I'm talking this out, I think I probably would be okay with Peter Woods. Is just who's available. If it's between Woods and an edge rusher, then what do you prefer? What do you put more value in? And as I'm saying this, to me, an interior edge rusher, I keep saying edge rusher. What's going on with me? An interior rusher, disruptor, would make life that much easier for whatever edge rushers you already have. And maybe you can get another, like we mentioned before, with Howell, someone who comes in on third down and is kind of sort of strictly a pass rusher on obvious passing downs. You can get one of those later and still be okay. So for me, if they did Woods, I'd be cool with that too.
This is the conversation where I would love a trade down. It just feels like you can make a case for a lot of these guys, and it feels maybe a little rich at 22. I like Peter Woods a lot. I think most of the draft community is really underrating Caden McDonald just because he's been the DT1 forever. And everybody's looking for everybody else. I still think he's the best interior defensive lineman in this class, but I think Peter Woods is pretty close. I mean, when I was watching him, it felt like a Javon Hargrave coming out of college when I watched him. I mean, he's got such a big impact on the game, and I love Peter Woods, but I just don't feel like taking him there at 22 feels like the right move, especially with what they have so far. It's a need for sure, but without a starting guard, not really having any edge rusher past this season, it just feels like it's, to me, it comes down to either guard or offensive line or edge at this point in the first round. Because I feel like a lot of these interior defensive linemen, you can get some really good ones a little bit later.
Oh, there's one in particular that I love, and maybe we'll get to that. But when we're talking Kaden McDonald, I think that's another one of those where a guy's been so good for so long that people just kind of get a little tired of him.
Sure.
But he is more of that run stuffer. So then the question becomes, if you were to pick McDonald, and it feels like this is the direction they're going in already, they don't necessarily want Tart playing really much nose. So, I mean, there's Caldwell. So if you want Tart to be more of a 3-tech and have more of that upfield disruption and he be that guy, cool. And then it makes sense to get McDonald next to him to be kind of that true run stopper. I could get down with that also, but it just depends on what the plan is. And it feels to me like that may have something to do with whomever is available. So like if, for instance, McDonald's on the board and they feel like he's too good to pass up, then you kind of know what Tart's role is going to be. And if McDonald's gone and you have just kind of more of the interior disruptors, the guy that upfield pass rushers, so like we talked about with Woods, then maybe Caldwell becomes more of your true nose and you still do a little bit of nose with Tart. Oh, I'm saying all this. They freaking signed what's our guy from the Cardinals? Completely forgot about him. The nose tackle from the Cardinals. Can't even think of his name right now.
You're thinking of Delvin Tomlinson.
Delvin Tomlinson.
Yeah.
Forgot just that quickly. They have a nose. So now it doesn't
Delvin
make
Tomlinson,
sense.
Think about Jamari Caldwell, T.R. Tart, a boy.
I don't think McDonald makes sense at all because I completely forgot about that.
Okay. All right. So we're on the same page. Now here's the $1 million question. If this is how the board falls and Jordan Tyson is there, would you take that swing?
No, I'd be praying that somebody wants him and trades up for him because as much of a talent as he is, and as much as Jamie would probably love having an ASU guy at wide receiver on the team, he can't stay on the field.
Yeah.
The explosiveness is all there, like the acrobatic catches. The guy's a tremendous wide receiver. Sometimes I think he does a little too much that he doesn't have to kind of show off his athleticism. He did that during his pro day recently. Sometimes he can do a little too much. But yeah, this is a super explosive, really fluid athlete. And it would be great if he could stay healthy, but he can't seem to. And you don't get, number one, healthier as you get older, but also if you're dealing with all these injuries in college, you're going up to the next level. What makes you think that you'll be healthier in the pros? So that's not a swing I'd be willing to take, especially like not early in the first round. I will be shocked. Well, I'm looking forward to see who's probably going to take that swing because I think he might be going earlier than what he should based on his health. But if you're saying would I do that as the Chargers? Nah, because I need somebody that I know is going to be on the field. Like, let's be clear. You don't want to tempt fate here. We know what the issue with the Chargers are when it comes to injuries. So you got a guy who, or maybe it's the reverse.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Joe Alt, Omarion Hampton, and Rashawn Slater, who never missed a college game in their entire career. Yes, all these dudes who never missed a game who suddenly get to the Chargers and can't stay on the field. Maybe this is the opposite. I'm not willing to take that chance, but you never know.
That the next time somebody goes, "Oh, he's an Iron Man," when referring to a football player, I'm going to say, "Come over to the Chargers and test that." All right. So I wouldn't take that shot either. I just don't feel like. I think people are gambling on a talent that I don't feel like is going to hit its ceiling because I do not feel like he's going to be able to stay healthy. He couldn't stay healthy in the college level. I feel like he's going to get his butt kicked in the NFL, and there's going to be some big issues. So I'm not going to Jordan Tyson. I don't care what PFF says, and I mean he's a pretty good football player, but I'm not going there. So I would say now. I guess we'll take one more question. What about Caleb Banks? How? He is not there for me. I got him as like the 4th best defensive lineman in this class. I'm not taking IDL 4 at 22. How are you feeling about his fit?
Freakazoid interior defensive lineman that is dealing with back-to-back foot injuries. Like big guy that moves like someone his size ought not move, but also lower body injuries. Too consistent. I don't know if it was the same foot, but again, consistently back-to-back injuries. He played a few games, I think 2-3 games last year. Showed up to Senior Bowl, showed out there, I think, on day 2, then through the draft process, re-injured himself. I think he had like a broken foot.
Mhm.
I'm not messing with that. I know Harbaugh apparently fell in love with him, but again, this is one of those guys that you be banking on staying healthy. If he were healthy, even with the few games that he played last year, he'd probably be easily like a top 15-ish pick.
And we're not even talking about the hernia injury he had 3 years ago. So like it's been everywhere. I'm pretty sure it was 3 foot injuries, wasn't it? Because
at least 2.
He had the foot injury at like fall camp in 25. Then he had that broken foot against LSU, which is a big deal. And then he had one at the combine. Yeah, it's 3. It's 3 broken feet and a hernia. You only have 2 feet, so I'm not I'm not testing that. So I mean, again, if you're trading down and collecting picks, if you get an early second round pick, I am all in on betting on a guy like Caleb Banks if you got him there. I'm just not taking it at 22. So Craig, it feels like we have circled around to TJ Parker. Am I correct?
That's what it feels like.
Okay. Let's go ahead and do it and move on. Chargers get their edge. They needed to go edge. We think there's some depth here at dude. Malachi Lawrence was still available in the second, which would have been a nice little extra, but that's okay. Now I do think let's look at the interior.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Rutledge is there, which feels like the perfect fit. You hit draft and move on, but that's not good podcasting. So let's talk about some other options. Can I ask you how you feel about Chris Brazzell from Tennessee?
All right, Tennessee wide receiver stigma. I think Brazzell. Sorry, my dog's freaking out. I think Brazzell is a tremendous athlete. Deep speed, got the size, ability to go up against the ball, get the ball, has some decent run after catch ability. But I'm just leery about Tennessee wide receivers in general. They just don't seem to pan out in the wide receiver in the NFL. You've got Tennessee who loves to utilize the field in college. You got those wide hash marks, so they stretch teams out and they move the ball horizontally, vertically. They just, they're all about tossing it all around the field. What I saw from him in a few games that I watched, I think I watched like 4 or 5 games. I don't know if he can get off of press coverage. I didn't see a ton of it because of the way that they utilized him. He's really good at getting by guys and stacking cornerbacks and tracking the ball. But you're not going to have these free releases all day long in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So I like Sanjay Law as a coach to be able to develop wide receivers. Again, I like his overall natural talent. But the question is, day one, what are you going to do with him? I wouldn't necessarily consider, even with like his height, I don't think he's a true X receiver. He can definitely get vertical, but he's not somebody that you're going to be looking to get the ball to on, say, like 3rd and 4 when you need to convert on a slant over the middle. Like, is he going to be able to take contact? If someone's pressing him up in his face, is he going to be able to shrug that off and get a ball 2 yards off the line of scrimmage and fight for that extra 3 for the first down? Is he going to be able to do that? I don't think he has the body type for it. I don't think he has the natural play strength for it or the functional strength for it. For me, he's more of a pure vertical threat. So, again, I don't dislike him, but for what it seems like they want at wide receiver, I don't think he's an overall fit.
No. And the more I watched him, I kept seeing so many hitches and goes that I just was like, where is this route tree that this kid's running? And how are we talking about him in the second round? I ended up looking it up. He had 49% of his entire routes at Tennessee were hitches or goes. Mm-hmm. I mean, talk about an underdeveloped route tree. I mean, he can do one thing and he can do it pretty good, but ask him to do anything else and it just isn't good enough. The physicalness was my biggest issue. He just seemed so weak at the catch point. He's not a guy that I'm looking for. in the second round, but it's a popular name there at 55. Malachi Lawrence was a guy, like if we went with a guard in the second round, I think would be a really nice 1-2 punch there for us if we would have gone that way. Let's talk about tight ends. Would you look at tight ends about this range?
No.
Okay. About when do you start looking at tight ends? Because it feels like I'm like third round at the most. I'm probably kicking it to day 2 or day 3, excuse me.
Yeah. At this point,
because it's Stowers, Max Clare, Sam Roush, Michael Trigg, Justin Jolly. It's just like
no. And I mean, Gaston's going to be more your flex Y. You got Charlie Kohler who can do both, and I think he's going to absolutely be more effective in the passing game now with the Chargers than he was in Baltimore. Like if you go back and look at Iowa State, he wasn't known for being a great blocker. He was a pretty good pass receiver. He just was underutilized in Baltimore and was kind of buried on that depth chart. If anything, you're probably looking for more of a pure blocking tight end. And I'm not spending a day 2 pick on that. That's going to be much later in the draft. Like if there's a developmental guy, maybe a higher end athlete that you want to take a swing at later on, then cool. But if you absolutely are just looking for someone who can be a true traditional wide tight end, I don't think that's something that's necessary right now or early. So yeah, day 3 at the earliest for me. I'm not even looking at tight end day 2.
Yeah, I'm not either. But Alex Keith said I was going to mention it too. Max Clare seems to fit that bill. But I am not willing to take him in the second round.
I think Kohler gives you what you want Max Clare to eventually be. And like I said before, I think the Chargers are going to reap the benefit of what Kohler is now and what he developed as a run blocker when he was in Baltimore. Again, initially in college at Iowa State, he was more the receiving tight end. So he already has those chops. He became a better blocker in Baltimore. Now you're getting the all-around version of him with the Chargers. So to me, Clare seems like a little overkill.
Sure. Then let's talk about so wide receiver. Obviously, we talk about Brazil. Bryce Lance is on this list. Antonio Williams, Elijah Surratt. Any of those names? Nothing yet, huh? Okay, that's right. Let's go.
Wait, Bryce Lance in the second round?
I don't know. They've got him ranked really high. I do not have him that high. That feels a little tough for me.
I mean, I also understand it. Speed guy can get vertical, but still not the most physically imposing XY receiver. Again, I think they have a type in mind that they want, and he doesn't quite feel that. And he's also a little older as well. So nothing that I'm seeing right now.
Okay, so here is my question now, because there's a name that keeps climbing up boards, and he's available here at the second. Some first-round buzz recently, and that's Traden Stukes, the corner out of Arizona. I liked more when I got to watch him. I began to like him more and more just because of all the stuff he was able to do. It just feels like he can be used in like split field rotations, playing some robber, a nickel defender in like a cover 3 if you want him to. It just feels like, and then even when you want to like simulate pressure, he feels like a guy that's like really close to the line of scrimmage. I like his like taller frame. He's versatile. I love his playing style. There's something like about him that I really enjoy. And I'm not making comps, but things that like, you know, when I said like it kind of reminded me of Javon Hargrave, like that kind of disruption on the field. This feels like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson coming out of college, where it was kind of like a do-it-all type player with that kind of like real tenacity and aggressiveness that you like in a DB. So I really like Stukes. I could easily see why a team would fall in love with him. I would not hate this pick here if it's Stooks. I mean, I think we kind of made up our mind already. And we spoiled it early looking at guards, but Stooks feels like a really, really good option here.
I really like Stooks as well. And for all the reasons that you mentioned, he's going to be somewhat of a hybrid guy, more of a star / safety. I know he's got the size. I think he's like 6'2", around 200 or so pounds. But he's a tremendous athlete. I mean, I saw him keep up with some really fast wide receivers. It feels like you might be able to, if you wanted to, maybe in a pinch, put him at outside corner potentially, even though I know he played a lot in the slot. But just from a coverage perspective, there's no one that he won't be able to keep up with regard to foot speed vertically.
Mhm.
And he's really nasty close to the line of scrimmage. Again, the question for me is that where it's a good problem to have. Like, you have these types of players so you can like use them as chess pieces. But if he, in essence, is kind of sort of more like your Derwin right now, then I don't know where you place him, because he's not the most natural free safety. So I don't think you want to have him covering deep or roaming the back end solo like cover 3 single high guy. I'm not saying he can't do it, but it almost feels like, because of what Derwin does and the fact that you kind of have this safety room at this point that's pretty full, he's sort of kind of a man without a position. And again, it presents that same issue where, like, yes, it's a really good player, one of the higher players at the position at this point of the draft that's still on the board, and it's continuing to strengthen the strength. But are you going to get the most out of him right now? Or is this a play where like he eventually takes over and becomes one of those guys like maybe next season? I think he's also already like 24 years old as well. So like the player, but again, I'm thinking from a fit perspective, and that comp is great. I never even thought about that. He does remind me a lot of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Just hopefully he's not nearly the head case. But yeah, it just, again, I'm thinking of fit and how you can best utilize him right now and where he could be most effective in this defense. If he played more outside corner, like, because I still feel like the Chargers need a true shutdown outside corner. If he had more of that to his game, I would probably feel a lot better about taking him in the second round, but just not enough snaps on the outside. I think he had less than 10 outside snaps this game. So.
Yeah. He didn't play a lot outside. Let's just look at interior defensive lineman. Grayson Halton, they have ranked 70th, huh? Interesting. Dominic Orange, Daryl Jackson Jr. It's the fall off. If you do not have a late first, early second, you're going to miss out on a lot of these good interior defensive linemen. So, Craig, it feels like the pick is Keelan Rutledge. How are you feeling about his fit?
It always was. I love it. It's funny that guys cannot do anything in between the last game they play in college and in the draft, and they can move up and down these draft boards, because Rutledge started the beginning of draft season as like a third round guy. He's progressively moved up into the second round. I saw somebody that had him at the back end of the first. I'm like, okay, pump your brakes. I think we're doing a little bit too much here. But yeah, for me, moving ability, really nasty in open field and climbing to the second level. Someone that can attach and will play through the whistle. I'm gonna say attach, like the feet don't stop moving. He gets his hands inside of the pads, at the second level, or defensive lineman, like again in the chest plate, so he doesn't get a ton of holding calls. So technique is pretty solid. I think he's someone that you can just plug and play, forget about it, and there's your guard situation taken care of. At the left guard spot for the next, however 5+ years, because he's definitely a second contract dude in my estimation. So yeah, well, this is in the second round, so you wouldn't get the 5th-year option, but you guys know what I'm talking about. He's somebody that will absolutely be sticking around for a while. So yeah, I think this is a no-brainer. If he's sitting there in the second round and you didn't somehow get Vega in the first round, that doesn't happen, and Rutledge is staring you in the face at 55, no questions asked. You get that done.
Yeah, and career guard. I think he had like 2 at left tackle and like no, I take that back. He had 43 at left guard and then like almost 3,000 at right guard. So, yeah, you're gonna flip him over to the left guard. He's played it there before, but he's got the like that stocky, thick build that you want in an offensive lineman, but that kind of aggressive driver finisher with that kind of old school kind of mean streak. It's the perfect kind of offensive lineman you want. And I just love the way Rutledge just always retools and reworks his hands between reps, just like always trying to get the better hand placement and always trying to hand fight the entire time, and pretty durable and always available. So it's time to test fate and bring Keelan Rutledge over. I really liked him. I think he's a really good offensive lineman, a guy that I wouldn't mind taking early in the second if you trade down. Now we're obviously not trading down in this scenario, but I really do enjoy watching him play because he's just got that old school flair that you love in your offensive lineman. I'm a fan of his.
And Tech ran a decent amount of zone in their running game, and he's like when we're talking about somebody adept at both, but specifically when having to move into space and pulling and things of that nature. And again, like I said before, attaching the guys at the second, even in third level. Again, someone of his size that moves as well as he does on the interior is not supernatural. So if you can get one of those guys and you can get it even in the second round and have him be a long-term starter, then that's a definite win. Yeah,
I think he's a little he kind of lacks a little bit of the length, and I think that's why he's fallen a little bit here to the second, but it does not concern me at all. Not worth passing on him here. So, all right, so we got our edge, we got our guard. It's time to I don't know, a little razzle dazzle here. We can do what we want here. Obviously, we want to go interior defensive line. We probably want to think about a DB. We want to think about a wide receiver here. Is there any other positions you're looking at?
Show me corner really quickly.
All right. So it is Chandler Rivers, Devin Moore, Dalen Everett, Malik Muhammad.
Okay. Dalen Everett and Muhammad are guys that I'm kind of sort of interested in, but show me interior defensive line now. Curious.
Okay, yeah. Dalen Everett is my guy in that group.
Yeah.
You wanted what? I'm sorry.
IDL.
Okay. Interior defensive lineman.
Bang. He's there.
Who's
Caleb Proctor.
Oh, okay.
Caleb Proctor. Here's my thing. I'm going to tell you why this sticks out to me more. So I've watched a ton of Caleb Proctor at this point. Reason being is because I have a close family friend, like we essentially consider him family, that works on the staff over at Southeastern. And I would say like a few months ago, he's talking to me about, like, we're talking about defensive linemen. He's like, so we got a guy you might want to look at. I'm not sure if you heard of him. He throws Proctor's name out to me, and I go and look at some stuff. I'm like, oh, okay. And I checked out his performance against LSU, and that's when it really got me. Super twitchy athlete. When we talk about interior disruption and instant wins off the line of scrimmage, that's his thing. As far as upfield rush, it's not even necessarily about gauging the snap count and guessing. He's just naturally ridiculously quick off the snap of the ball. And there were instances where he had a step almost fully into the backfield before offensive linemen got through half of their pass rush set. It was nuts to see that on the interior of defensive line. I'm thinking to myself, okay, like, am I the only one that's seeing this? And for the last few months, his name's been popping up more and more and more, and to the point now where I've seen some really respected analysts say that he might go earlier than what people think. And this is just one of kind of sort of those deep cuts. I mean, the dude plays at Southeastern. So,
yeah,
you know, most people could care less about Southeastern football. It's not like they put out world beaters, but every once in a while you'll get like one of these outlier guys, and he fits, you know, the mold there. And I'm going to say that for me personally, if Proctor's sitting there in the third round and you're still looking at needing one of those interior pass rushers, then that's probably the guy you go grab and you won't think twice about it. I don't know how much the Chargers will value that right now, but again, if you don't want to have to spend like first or second round draft capital and nobody falls to you that you feel like is absolutely worth it, I think Proctor in the third round is someone that you take and you just let it rip, let him get after it. Even if it's just situationally early on, one of those interior third down rushers to start things off year one, then fine, and just continue to develop his game as he goes along. But for me, I'd be perfectly fine with it. I mean, I know, I don't know how the chat feels about it, how you feel about it, but Proctor is someone that I think is going to end up being a tremendous player for someone. And I would not also be shocked if he goes higher than what maybe some people, some people probably have never even heard of him, but what most even think that he will at this point. And what is he ranked on PFF? I mean, it's PFF. So what they have him at 111?
Yep.
Okay. I mean, I guess, but yeah, that's the guy that I had my eye on. But what are you thinking?
Yeah, to be honest with you, Caleb Proctor's not a guy that ever hit my radar. I know you've talked about him, not a guy I've watched, so I can't really give you much thoughts on that. It feels pretty low level of competition, right? But probably the best, interior lineman out of the FCS in this draft class.
One of his best games was against LSU. So now I get where you're going, but seeing him play against higher level competition and actually not just compete, but I'm talking about win in more reps than you would think someone that plays for that team and against the regular type of competition that they play against, he was winning consistently.
Okay. I haven't watched him. Which I guess is where we're going to start going here pretty soon, since there's only 3 more picks. I like Corleone. Feels like a pretty nice run stuffing D lineman with some pass rushing upside. But not his go-to move, obviously. Where else? Let's see where else we can go. Let's see safety. We were talking about safety maybe later. So you like Bud Clark?
I like Bud Clark a lot as a deep safety. Again, if you're going to play some of that cover 3 where you rotate safeties down someone, maybe you start off in a 2-high shell and you rotate post snap into that single high look. He's someone that can play your deep third and can range from sideline to sideline and isn't a ball magnet. So if you want guys to disrupt up front, you want a safety that can play in the box, you've got that. You've got defensive linemen that can get after it, edge rushers that can get after the passer. If you want someone who can attack a poorly thrown pass that reads the ball really well in the air, can track it, and gets early beads on the ball and can either get PBUs or create turnovers, but Clark does it very, very well. And I think he's a little underrated in this class also.
Yeah, I have the same thoughts on Bud Clark and Zachy Wheatley, who I feel like should be probably late second round picks, but are being overlooked a little bit. I just feel like those two are pretty versatile safeties. I really like Wheatley's size. I think I like him near the line of scrimmage. I like him deep. It just feels like a rangy, tough kid that you would want on the back end. So I like both of these guys, both Zachy Wheatley and Bud Clark. I have Wheatley ranked higher. On my list, Genesis Smith should not be this high, by the way. I just want to throw that out there. Not a guy who should be 98th overall. No, thank you. He's outside the top 100 for sure. So we have a decision to make here. We can go safety with one of the guys we would like, Zachy Wheatley, Bud Clark, or we can go interior defensive lineman, Corleone. I don't mind going with Proctor. Do we want to have the chat decide?
Yeah.
Or do you have a strong feeling towards one or the other?
I still feel like, again, safety is sort of kind of a luxury pick.
Okay. So if we were going interior defensive line, it's between Proctor and Corleone.
Mm-hmm.
Tight end, Sam Roush is still available, but I'm still not really loving it. Yeah, I'm not taking Roush there.
No, I'm not
okay.
feeling the tight end thing right now.
What?
I'm not feeling the tight end thing right now.
I'm not either. I'm just trying to think of other positions that we might not have hit yet. Got the edge.
No, we talked about corner a little.
Oh, wide receiver.
Yeah.
Ted Hurst, Malachi Fields.
Okay.
Stribling.
This is actually pretty interesting. Okay. So Hurst is another one of those guys with tremendous upside, talent, vertical ability, makes some crazy grabs. Also drops some really easy passes as well. Level of competition matters. When he played up, it didn't go well for him. Except I think he played pretty decently against Ole Miss. That's another project. The Malachi Fields thing, right? He's more of what, from a physicality standpoint, I think they'd be looking for. He's just not a high-level athlete, but he's a big-bodied X that can win the contested catches, and he is someone that you can count on in those shorter down and distance situations where you have to move the chains. So because you have so many different options at wide receiver, like you got Ladd, who, and again, folks, I keep saying this, stop thinking number one wide receiver just because a guy plays X. To me, the number one wide receiver is the guy who gets the most targets. That should be Ladd. So you got someone who can work in the short and intermediate and still actually does pretty well after catching Ladd. Got Trey Harris, who's going to play a bigger role, who can move around from X to Z. But that true bigger bodied X, that's a chain mover. And you can also count on if you just need to throw the ball up and have somebody go and get it, like head top someone, like go up high, take the ball off the top of their helmet, can win in the red zone. Malachi Fields actually fits that bill. Just don't ask him to try to outrun anybody because that's not his thing. But again, you have, and then like you got KLS. Keep in mind, you're talking about like field stretches, guys with more speed. So you got different flavors at wide receiver, and Fields kind of fits the bill for the type of receiver you don't have. So keep that in mind.
Are you willing to take any of them in the third round? I'm not really feeling this group.
I consider Fields in the third round.
You would?
But I would.
Huh. Okay.
Like, okay, think about this. If you scroll down, look at the rest of your wide receiver options here going forward for the rest of the draft. The only other player you can stop that I see, scroll up a little bit more. Everyone else is more of one of these projections to where they have to be developed, and it might take a few years. Jacoby Lane is another guy that I would like, because before Mekhi Lemon took over last year, Jacoby Lane was the dude the year prior. He's another X wide receiver, taller, actually ran sub 4.5, which I was a little shocked about. He almost seems like he doesn't necessarily play to that speed all the time, but it's in there. And he makes some of the most ridiculous grabs you've seen. Like, I think he maybe had, outside of our guy from Indiana, who's a first-round prospect, and the ridiculous catch he made this year, Jacoby Lane probably has like the number 2 or 3 best catch I've ever seen. I've seen last year. So that's another receiver that may be available in the 4th round, but then, you're chancing it. And he's the one that you could still potentially make your X wide receiver. Doesn't give you a whole lot after the catch, but again, another bigger body, like guy who'll go up and make tremendous high leverage, difficult catches. But again, still someone who needs development. I think Fields would be more of someone you can put on the field day one that can make a difference in your offense, where Lane, you're going to have to pick and choose your spots with him. So again, after the third round, it becomes more about guys that won't necessarily make as big of an impact this year, but moving forward potentially could. I'm thinking about guys that can help you compete right now. So I would absolutely take Fields in the third round. But then the question, I guess, becomes, do you want that wide receiver, the true X wide receiver, or do you want someone who can be an interior disruptor? And that's when you have to like flip the coin to make a decision, I guess.
I would say we'll talk about him in a little bit, but I am not. I hear what you're saying on Malachi Fields. I just don't think he's as close. I get he's close, but I still feel like he's somewhat of a project. I hear what you're saying though, but I do not feel like this is a good fit here at 86. I don't know. It feels rich to me. But let's talk about because it really feels like interior defensive line is kind of where we landed. Yes, wide receiver is going to be a need, but they do have some guys there. Trey Harris, obviously, Ladd, QJ is still there. KLS is developing. There's some names there. I do feel like interior defensive line is a position that's going to need a changeover pretty soon. And I know you really like Proctor. I like Corleone. I don't. Do you want to go with Proctor or do you want to have the chat decide? What are you thinking?
We can leave it up to the chat, but
Okay.
The reason why I'm thinking I'm going to say Proctor is because he gives you what Corleone doesn't as a consistent interior upfield disruptor. And that's his game. And again, it's an element that they don't have. So I keep thinking about pieces that make sense for the roster as it's currently constructed.
Okay. So chat, the decision is Caleb Proctor, Dante Corleone. Who should we take here in the third round? J. Alex Keith already said Proctor, but that was like 10 minutes ago. So we'll go with it. Yep. J. Keith still Proctor. I think we'll wait for one Alex Keith again with Proctor. That's his third time saying Proctor. No, there's another Proctor. Looks all right. There's three. Okay, we'll take Caleb Proctor. I feel like I'm gonna have to go watch him now.
Y'all know ball.
If I come back here,
I'm telling you, man,
not as good as Dante Corleone. I'm gonna be pretty pissed.
Okay, I don't.
You got Glizzy Guzzler on your side, Craig. Lucky you.
Hey, yo,
that's the deciding factor. Caleb Proctor is the Chargers' third round pick. Chargers got their edge. They got their interior offensive lineman. They now have their interior defensive lineman, and it is now time to start thinking about a wide receiver and or DB here in my mind. So let's go wide receiver. Jacoby Lane is there. Have you, by chance, watched a guy that I'm falling in love with, and that's Jeff Caldwell from Cincinnati?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. This guy says I trust Craig. Like, I'm not going against Craig. I don't. Okay, go ahead. Sorry. Anyway, Jeff Caldwell.
No, that's cool. No offense. Thank you for trusting me. But anyway.
Yeah.
Caldwell is tall and very fast. Here's the problem.
Perfect RAS score, by the way.
The dude can't stop. Like, have you seen him try to break down for like comeback and out routes? It takes him like an additional 4 steps. So like he can run really fast, but he can't throttle himself down at all. I trust Sanjay Law to be able to teach him how to kind of govern his speed, but it feels like he only knows one speed. And that's the problem. So it's not necessarily that he can't do it. It's just that he runs so fast all the time that he doesn't understand that certain routes require a certain level of pacing. If you're running too fast and you don't have the ability to slow your momentum down, to chop your feet to where like you don't completely throw off timing or give a DB the opportunity to close the space before your break, then you're kind of useless unless you just plan on running go routes all the time and like mossing dudes. If that's your thing, cool. I just think, again, thinking fit, is he going to just be that type of receiver in this offense? Are you just going to ask him to be a vertical threat? Are you going to ask him to run multiple types of routes? Because at this point, he's just not polished enough to get that done consistently. Super freaky talent. And, if you want to try to bank on that upside and maybe Law helping him develop a little quicker than what it seems like he will, at least from my perspective, then cool. Like, you can do that. And I get the Rascal thing. Again, like I said, I'm not bagging on the dude for his athleticism. He clearly has that. It's just the nuance at the wide receiver position. He has a lot of learning to do. And I mean, what round are we in at this point? Is this
4?
4?
No, I'm not saying he should go here.
Okay.
That's not my conversation. I was just scrolling down the wide receiver list and he popped up.
Okay, cool. Later round, like mid-ish, later round prospect that is a project. And again, like I said before, not somebody I think that helps you right now. That's like 2 years from now, potentially.
Oh man, I don't think it's that far away. I mean, he had a limited route tree, granted, but I feel like a long receiver with that kind of great speed and athleticism. To be honest, I saw enough in breaking routes. I had no issues with it. I feel like he was pretty sudden in and out of his breaks, and that's what allowed him to create so much separation and get so many, big plays and touchdowns because of it. And really tough at the catch point. I feel like he's obviously not perfect. He's a day 3 pick, and he's definitely going to be like a 5th or 6th round pick, but feels like he is so close to breaking it open. But that's what you're doing with a day 3 pick anyway. We are, so Jacoby Lane is let's see. I just want to go back to my list real quick. Yeah. Jacoby Lane is my next best player on my list. Yep. Which I could see. Let's go back to interior offensive line to see if we can double dip. Bo Stevens is there.
Oh, well, yeah. I need an Iowa offensive lineman at some point, by the way. I just need one.
One Iowa. I've always wanted an Iowa tight end. Offensive lineman or tight end. I'll take either one.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you had one in last year's draft that you liked. Was it last year or a year prior? He kept getting hurt though. I think he ended up getting hurt in the NFL.
Yes, he was the Michigan.
The transfer.
Yeah, that Harbaugh wouldn't touch.
Yeah. Well, I can't remember his name.
Dang. So quickly we forget. We watch hundreds of guys. I think I was close to 200. Man. Anyway, I'll get the name. So do you like Bo Stevens?
I do. And I think at some point, I mean, we need to talk about potential. Stevens is a guard.
Eric All.
There you go. That should have been a really easy name to remember.
I know. It was. I don't know how we missed that.
It's crazy. Okay, let's put a pin in Stevens.
Okay. All right. What position do you want me to go to? Corner?
Let's take a look at corner, yeah.
Corner, Tacario Davis.
Okay, I know Davis is one of those. Well, he and Prysock, I think those are one of those like late round specials, 6'3", 6'4" corners that can run. And we know that they kind of sort of covered those guys.
And safety. Oh, maybe I should just do a safety. Stroman, Wisniewski, Bishop Fitzgerald, VJ Payne. I don't like any of those. Okay. Tight end. Oh. How do you have any thoughts on Justin Jolly or Jack Andrews?
I want to like Jolly more than I do.
You want to?
I want to like him.
Yeah,
more than I do.
Same.
Other than that, scroll down a little bit.
Marlon Klein. Bentley.
Yeah, it gets ugly
Yeah.
in a hurry.
Did you watch Endries? Jack Endries?
Not a lot. And it's funny because
Okay.
I'm right up the road from him. Not really. Didn't watch much of Endries at all.
I liked him. I liked him better than Jolly for sure. It just the big knock on him for me was that it just felt like he needed to improve his play strength, and when he would get out physical than me when he would go one-on-one in man coverage, and it feels like if you could coach him up to be more physical, he could be a pretty good tight end. But he's willing to block. He's a really good, effective receiver. Texas offense was not all that good last year, but you know, he had like 120 something receptions in his 3 seasons. So good enough, good production, and just a consistent player, not like flashy, like a Dennis Pitta type where it's like, you know, he's not your tight end 1, but you know, he could probably be a tight end 2 at some point.
Yeah.
Definitely a tight end depth signing.
Yeah. You know, I keep feeling like there's no way that Ortiz gets out of this draft without drafting another corner. And I can't get it out of my head. They turned Benjamin St-Juste into a serviceable cornerback.
Got him a contract. They need to send him like a fruit plate or something because St-Juste got a new contract.
At the very least, man. Keeping that in mind, Cam Hart's the only other really bigger body corner that you have, still developing. I want to see a larger step forward from Cam this year, but they signed St-Juste for a reason, and he walks. And you got 2 big body corners in Washington that can run that sort of remind me of the St-Juste play style. And I feel like they might go after one of those guys if they're available in the later rounds, mid to late rounds. But I can't see them going this draft without taking at least one corner. It's what they do.
Yeah. And Takario Davis with his size and length, I totally get it. He had some pretty good workout numbers too.
Yep.
By the way,
both he and Prysock, I think, worked out very well. I think are they both sub 4.5 guys at over 6? Are they both over 6'3"?
I don't remember. I know that Takario is the only one that's really coming to mind. I mean, I obviously watched both of them, but Takario's 6'3" for sure, and he ran a 4.4 for sure.
And Prysock, I think Prysock's like 6'4". I remember they're both tall. One was taller than the other.
Yeah, I
want to say
right.
Prysock's like 6'4".
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, he ran sub 4.5.
My only issue with Davis is like I don't love his punch off the line. I feel like a lot of it's mistimed, and then he would miss and then get grabby, and then he had a ton of penalties. And then he was pretty injured last year, so it was tough. But I think there's a lot to like about taking a guy like Takario Davis here and develop that. I mean, you can't teach that size and length and speed. I will say he doesn't play as fast as his 4.4 time, but I do feel like being able to he's got outside corner versatility. He's got some slot and safety alignment that he played in Washington. It feels like he's really comfortable in bail technique, playing off man, a lot of cover 3 in Washington. So and I love a DB who can tackle, and Takario Davis can tackle. So I am with that here.
Yo, I mean, and in my eyes, Steve Klingscale can do no wrong. You fix Benjamin St-Juste for at least a year. That being said, I entrust this dude with whoever they get. And if you're talking about like just again from a physical standpoint, guys with this type of length and athleticism, give them to Steve and let him go to work. And I would not be surprised if we've already seen it twice. Well, now 3 times with someone who was a reclamation project, but at least the 2 younger guys with Cam and Still, who came in as like mid to later round picks, who produced right away. I
Mhm.
trust him to be able to take one of these guys, and if they don't step on the field next year, a year of development, and be able to like roll them out there. Say, for instance, Cam doesn't take another step, and they're like, okay, I don't think it's worth it anymore. Then you've got his replacement waiting in the wings already. Someone with better athleticism, maybe even a little bit more size. So I'd be cool with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Bo Stevens is a guy I would consider here. I know they need some interior line depth, but I feel like corner is probably a more pressing need after getting a interior offensive lineman in the second. So,
Okay,
let's
wait,
do it. Oh,
question for you.
yeah.
So I know we're talking about Bo Stevens at guard, but
Mhm.
if you ask the Chargers, that's kind of what they did this offseason, is work on offensive line depth, even though like we were clamoring for them to sign a starter on the interior.
Mhm.
What they didn't do was get potentially the next center, which I mean, they may. Do we see who's available right now at center?
Let's look. Burton is still available. Pat Coogan, I haven't watched him.
Coogan is, and that
I'm
might
hoping.
be, he might actually be available in the sixth. If Coogan's hanging around for that last pick in the sixth round, I think that's the direction they should go. That could be your center of the future in like the next 2 years. But at least worst case scenario, he's solid. And if something were to happen and you need him to step on the field, he would be a complete liability. I don't think so. That would be quality center depth for me, like right now. If you're looking to build that depth across the offensive line, specifically on the interior, then they, for whatever reason, they feel like they already have guard depth. They need a guard starter. Well, I would say they need 2 starters at guard,
Yeah,
but they
you sure
think
do.
they, like, from the way that Ortiz was talking, he was saying that they weren't done with the offensive line. It feels like they think that they still need another starter at guard, but I think they still need depth at center. And if Coogan's there later, then you could do that. But when we're talking Stevens, did Stevens play any center at all? Or was he strictly a guard?
I know he played tackle early on in his career and then switched to guard.
Okay. I only
I
watched a
don't
little bit of Stevens. I didn't watch like more than last year's snaps of Stevens. So I didn't go too far back in the bank for him. I didn't really have time to do it. So not sure there. But
yeah, I don't know if he
Coogan
played guard.
works if he's still hanging around there later in the sixth for that last pick for sure.
Brian Parker's available. They
Hmm.
do tackle.
You also bring up a good point at tackle too. Like, oh no, sorry, they have Trey Pipkins.
I was just gonna say, did you forget
I
about Trey
tried.
Pipkins? You tried. It didn't last very long, did it?
No,
We all tried. Okay,
they won't
so
let
I
us.
think I feel like Takario Davis feels like the right move here.
Yeah, again, that's like I said, I don't see them going getting out of this draft without taking at least one corner, and those physical tools, and someone that you can give to Steve Klingscale and help mold. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think you do that.
Yeah. All right, let's do it. Okay, one more. It's gonna be a long scroll here because they have nothing in
Mhm.
for a while. All right, here we go. We are in the 6th round, pick 204. We did not get a wide receiver here, by the way. Chase Roberts, Xavier Thomas, Tyron Montgomery. You were looking at interior offensive lineman. It feels like in the 4th round, you might have to reach a little bit because you don't have anything happening later. Your dude is gone. It's now Matt Gulpin at center. Okay. Who else? Let's look at tight end real quick. Okay. Did you watch any of Skylar Gill Howard? Oh, you're muted. No wonder
Oh,
it's
sorry.
Oh,
No, I haven't. I noticed that
do you see Oscar
Xavier.
Delp?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't think this is. They have to update their board. I mean, I don't think Delp's going to be available in the 6th round. He could. I mean, this is just all off of athletic profile. He underachieved at Georgia, but I know he was dealing with some injuries. But I don't think there's a chance in hell Delp's hanging around until the 6th round.
Okay, you don't want to even do it. Okay, all
I mean,
right.
if it just doesn't feel realistic.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Um,
It says his ADP is 199. That's surprising to me.
I don't know. Yeah. Also consider they went through some changes at PFF recently, and
Oh yeah.
the gentlemen or the guys that were responsible for help build these boards out, I don't think they've touched them in like a month. So this could really be a little outdated as far as this board goes, potentially.
Maybe.
Just a hunch.
Okay.
Uh,
So we got tight end. We looked at wide receiver. Let's see. So sorry, did you watch Skylar Gill? Howard?
no, but
Okay.
a name that I saw right under his, I know we said we hadn't taken any wide receivers, but Xavier Thomas
Okay.
is someone that can really run.
Okay.
Again, this would be a special teams guy, maybe a returner, and another one of those vertical threat dudes. Or you can get the ball to him in space and kind of let him do his thing. But again, it's not like one of the bigger body wide receivers like we talked about before. This would be another one of those specialty guys.
Okay. Gil Howard feels like a nice.
There was a question in the chat a while ago. I'm sorry I didn't get to it.
Yeah.
Someone asked, if I'm not mistaken, I don't remember who it is, so pardon me if I don't remember who you were correctly, but someone asked about Deion Burks. It's a wide receiver from Oklahoma. If you like Tyreek Hill type players, he's got a lot of that Tyreek Hill stuff. You just didn't see a lot of it consistently with Oklahoma because their offense was trash. But that's a dude that if you feel like Mike McDaniel wants a player that he thinks he can be sneaky with to be one of those, you can either win vertically guys or a tough after the catch dude with tremendous speed, like stocky build, little on the shorter side. He's only like 5'9", 5'10", like a $190 maybe. But when you're talking about can run and is a tough joker with the ball in his hands after the catch, Deion Burks is somebody I like a lot that didn't get as much shine as he should have at Oklahoma, but their quarterback is like kind of sort of like a glorified running back in my, like how I feel about him. Just wasn't all that good, not worth all the hype. But Burks is someone that I liked a lot. I don't necessarily think, and again, it just depends on the type of pull that McDaniel has. I think he probably likes a guy like Burks a ton. But whoever that was, you asked what my thoughts were on him. I'm a bigger fan of Deion Burks than I think a lot of people are. And again, if you want that Tyreek Hill-ish type player, then he gives you a lot of that stuff without all the off-field drama, multiple children by multiple women, not so much of that. If you just like your football to be about football and not the off the field hijinks, Burks is probably the guy that you want to go with.
Okay. Did you watch Daquan Wright? Because I have some thoughts on him. I don't know if you watched him.
A little bit, but go for it.
I'm surprised he's here. I have him as a late 4th. Really good frame, above average athlete, really good yak ability. I loved his hands, really good situational awareness for a tight end, and wasn't really taken off the field. It felt like he played every snap. So whether he needed to block the run game or a receiving weapon, he was one of their go-to red zone weapons. He was a leader at Ole Miss, and I understand like as an inline blocker, he's probably not like best suited for that quite yet. And then he doesn't really have like special teams value, which you probably would want in a later tight end on your depth chart. But I do feel like he's got a kind of bet on type qualities, like with the large catch radius, his ability to make the tough catches, his ability to find the touchdown in the red zone. He has plenty of inline experience, but I just don't think he's fit to go there. I just feel like he probably feels like a slot tight end who, you could kind of put in and be a receiving weapon. I feel like he could be a future tight end too. And I could get with it. I know that tight end isn't the biggest need here, but I do like this value here in the 6th because again, I have him as a late 4th.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. From just an overall talent perspective, he made some really big plays for Ole Miss, and with Lane Kiffin didn't necessarily have like the greatest tight ends in his time at Ole Miss. So when they got Wright, I was a little surprised that it took that long because of the way Kiffin likes to run his offenses. But Wright really stood out as a receiver, like you mentioned. Can't block for crap, but can absolutely get out into space and is kind of like a little bit of a wrecking ball with the in the open field after he gets the ball in his hands. So definitely more of a vertical tight end as well, someone who can get into the seams and make it happen. And he's surprisingly more athletic than you think he is after he gets the ball into his hands. I'm not saying he's making a lot of people miss, but he's probably a little bit faster, like on-field speed, in-game speed, than what a lot of people believe him to be, like the way he presents himself, the way he looks. But as a receiving option, absolutely. Like if you're looking for someone you want to develop and just have like a specialized role, maybe as a split Y, even play him in just like some power slot situations as well, then I'd be about that. So if this is like a late round fly that you want to take on a guy that probably shouldn't be there, I completely understand it.
Okay, but what do you value more? Because Skylar Gill-Howard, another guy that feels like shouldn't be there at this point, but is.
It's like you mentioned at this point, if you're talking about someone who can potentially make the roster, if you're going to take that spot, you have to have some special teams value.
Yeah, and I just don't think he's got it.
Nah. Wait, scroll back up again. Eli. Okay. I was looking at the Navy fullback. It's interesting.
They don't need one of those.
Nah.
Thank God.
Not. Definitely not. Not now.
Any position groups you want me to?
So Coogan's gone. So center's off the board. We got a corner. So it's got to be at this point like wide receiver or go back to the edge group really quickly. I'm curious. I just want to see something. Oh, Patrick Payton. That's interesting. Nah, we don't need to do that. We already got our edge. Yeah. So I'd say it's going to be between receiver and tight end. And if you're going to make me choose, I'd probably go the wide receiver route again, just because you can potentially get some special teams value as a returner. Because I mean, I have no idea what's going on with Darius Davis anymore.
Yeah.
That being said, Xavier Thomas would probably be my guy there.
I can get with it. They need another wide receiver. I think it's a pretty good bet here in the 6th round. I'm with it. So let's do it. All right. Let's end it here. So to recap, and I don't care about the grades, whatever happens. TJ Parker, man, but the grades were not good. Way worse than I thought. TJ Parker in the 1st, Keelan Rutledge in the 2nd, Caleb Proctor was a 3rd round pick, Tacario Davis, the lengthy corner in the 4th, and Xavier Thomas as the wide receiver in the 6th round. That's your 5 picks. I can't believe they give Keelan Rutledge a C- in the 2nd.
All things considered, I think this was a pretty solid draft.
Yeah.
Just kind of based on the way things fell, no trades.
There's some drafts where you hit early that after it it's like fool's gold. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like everything else is golden. So to get TJ Parker and Keelan Rutledge back to back, after that, I haven't watched Proctor, which I'll do as soon as I get off here, or tomorrow. And then to be able to get wide receiver and corner with traits in the 4th and 6th, I'm good with it.
What's wild is, again, like you mentioned, getting into the 6th round, every one of these players I've done homework on. And again, being that, I mean, all of us, like, been super busy, to say that I haven't had as much time as what I've had in years past and still have as much background for all these guys where we were able to get them says a lot about, again, how the board fell, but also the amount of talent at positions of need that the Chargers can address if they play their cards right.
Yeah. So it looks like we're getting knocked a lot because they had people ranked higher, like Jordan Tyson should have been taken there instead of TJ Parker, they're saying.
Yeah, see, there's no logic here. It's like, yeah, great. He's graded that highly, but then there's no context surrounding why you wouldn't take a guy who can't stay on the field.
I don't. We do draft grades every time we do this. The draft and all that, just because we're doing like live reaction stuff. But I always hate the grades. I want to know like which players were the best fits for what teams. That seems more substantial than just like, oh, that's a C+, because I would have gone somewhere else. But
it's super generic, and again, like there's no context. So.
Okay, so we will, Craig, you're ready to go live on Thursday. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but
no, it's cool. Like I was telling Garrett before we started, like I'm in the middle of a move. We just purchased a new home, so like I'm all over the place right now. But I will be here on Thursday. I'll do what I can for the rest of the weekend, because between the move, I'll also be traveling a little bit, so I'll be in and out. Right,
Thursday is on. If it's just Craig and I, then it would be just Craig and I. We'll see who else can get on. But outside of that, we'll figure it out as the days go on. So stick with us. Make sure you're following us. Make sure you jump in the Discord, because we normally are in there and talking about what's going on. But thanks for tuning in to the mock draft 2 days before the draft. And we will see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Salute.